Welcome one, welcome all. Whoa, my mic was super hot. Welcome one, welcome all to the greatest show of them all, the NFC East Mixtape, aka the NFC Beast Mixtape. A nice hat by my co-host. We'll get to him in just a moment. You can listen to this show on any one of the four SB Nation NFC East blog podcast networks. That is Blogging the Boys for Dallas Cowboys coverage, Bleeding Green Nation for Philadelphia Eagles, Big Blue View for New York Giants. We'll get to them in a moment. And Hogs Haven for the Washington Commanders. You can also watch this show on the Bleeding Green Nation YouTube channel or the Blogging the Boys YouTube channel. It is a playoff edition of the mixtape. Wooka, wooka, wooka. I am RJ Ochoa from BTB. He is Brandon Lee Gowton from BG and BLG. The Philadelphia Eagles are NFC East champions.
The NFC Beast, RJ. NFC Beast, like we called it all along. No losing teams in this division. Everyone finished with at least 500 or above.
Thanks to Brian Daboll. If it weren't for Brian Daboll, we could have had one below 500.
And here we are with the Philadelphia Eagles clinching, finally, the East. And a weird clinch of the East this year because it was so tied to the Eagles winning the one seed that like the division always felt secondary. It was always about the one seed. But Here the Eagles are at the top. They've clinched also, barring and we'll talk about this in terms of how we want to do the offseason podcast. But assuming things stay this way for now, the Eagles will have clinched the first spot in the offseason of the NFC East Mixtape, where we talk about the teams in divisional order. So
because we always go in divisional standing here in terms of the order that we talk about teams. So Philadelphia Eagles win the division. They'll be number one all season long, unless the Cowboys won the Super Bowl, I guess, or the Giants won the Super Bowl, I guess is what you were saying. But we'll get to that, obviously. So the official division standings, Philadelphia Eagles win it. We still do not have a repeat division champion in the NFC East. The Eagles will be be the next team to try. We're coming up on the 20-year anniversary, so maybe it will finally happen. But Eagles finish in first, Cowboys finish in second. The Giants finished in third. The Commanders riding caboose with an 8-8-1 record, one that Jason Garrett would be very, very proud of. As mentioned, no team below 500, all 500 and above. We have three teams in the playoffs. The Eagles, as you mentioned, Brandon, have the number one seed. They have the week off, which means we have two playoff games to get to. So we'll touch on the Eagles a little bit, but obviously with them having the week off, they're not going to be a huge focus of this episode of the mixtape. It's going to be all Giants, Vikings, and Cowboys, Buccaneers. And look, Brandon, I know that the Giants fans, the Big Blue View people, they say, you guys don't talk about the Giants enough. You guys, you don't know about our New York football Giants, all right? I wore my Houston Astros World Series championship cap today because my Astros beat your Philadelphia Phillies in the World Series, but in the ALCS, they beat this man's New York Yankees. From Big Blue View, it is Ed Valentine. Ed, one of our absolute favorites here on the mixtape. Thank you for joining us. A reminder that the Astros not only beat the Yankees, but swept them in the ALCS.
You guys didn't give me the hat memo. And
the podcast audience didn't know that.
You didn't give me the memo, and I didn't have time to run across the house and grab my Giants Super Bowl hat. So
which one?
Which one?
One of the I have two or three, so I would have grabbed the one that was in the best shape.
Well done. Well, Ed, at long last, as Brandon said, the Eagles clinched the NFC East. So now you and I have to hear him flapping around for a few months until we start this whole thing up again in September, barring, again, a Cowboys Super Bowl or a Giants Super Bowl. And everybody's saying if the Giants win the Super Bowl, it's going to be in 2011, 2007 fashion, sort of this, team that everybody counted out. They have looked better as of late. They lost on Sunday. Who cares? Whatever. They weren't playing Davis Webb, all that stuff. The New York football Giants are 3-point underdogs on the road in Minnesota. Kind of a classic, just 3-point home field advantage for the Vikings. What are the odds? How do you like it? I mean, how do you see this game going as Daniel Jones continues maybe the best football he's ever played right now?
Well, let me say this real quick, RJ. Let me say this. The Giants lost to the Eagles on Sunday, but I'm not sure I've ever enjoyed a Giants loss as much as I enjoyed the game on Sunday. I still want to know if Reed Blankenship is feeling Davis Webb.
Ooh.
And I have to admit, it was a lot of fun watching Webb play and knowing how badly the Eagles needed that number one seed. It was thoroughly enjoyable watching the Eagles have to work all the way to the end of that game to get it against the Giants junior varsity.
The little Giants.
The little Giants. There you go.
Okay. Well, Cowboys had a lot to do with that, forcing the Eagles obviously to work. So did the Saints, obviously, but the Eagles got it done. Kudos to them, et cetera, et cetera. It is Giants Vikings. The game just a few weeks ago, Ed, was one of the games of the year. That was an incredible game. It took a 1,000-yard field goal from Greg Joseph to win it for the Minnesota Vikings. The Vikings are a team that nobody believes in. Nobody thinks they're good. Everybody thinks they're frauds. And everybody kind of wants to believe in this Brian Daboll magic that's happening here. I think he's coach of the year. I think we all agree there. I'm certain that you agree, Ed. So does he have enough? He said earlier this week, playoff experience is overrated. Obviously, nobody on the Giants has any of it.
Well, I look at it this way. I think from a Giants perspective, the playoff matchup couldn't have worked out any better. All right. I didn't want to face, obviously you don't want to see the Eagles in your first playoff game. The only other way it could have worked out for the Giants was they would have had to go to San Francisco and face the 49ers. I wanted nothing to do with that. And look, it's no secret. The Minnesota Vikings are 13-4. But every advanced statistic from point differential to DVOA, by the way, by DVOA from Football Outsiders, the Minnesota Vikings are the 27th or 28th ranked team in the NFL. How are they 13-4? Okay. They're by advanced statistical measures, they're a 500 football team. And I look at this game, they're not better than the New York Giants. And I'm not going to sit here and tell you that the Giants are better than the Vikings. What I'm going to sit here and tell you is 27-24 was the score on New Year's or on Christmas Eve. That game came right down to the wire. The Giants had a chance to win it. I think you're going to see the same type of game on Sunday. I think you're going to see a fourth quarter game. And here's what I keep coming back to. You guys have seen enough NFL football, fourth quarter games, one score games. The Vikings are 11-0 this year in one score games. They're 11-0. You don't win every one score game. Sooner or later, they're going to lose one of those one score football games. And to me, it's entirely possible that it's this Sunday.
Yeah, and not just because too, like you're not good at one score games is why they're going to lose it. It's just because they're going to get unlucky at some point. Like there's going to be a call that goes against them,
right?
A fumble that doesn't bounce their way. Like eventually, they've been playing with fire, and it's worked out so far. If you go by weighted DVOA, by the way, which accounts for more recent performance, they're actually 28th, so a little even lower somehow than the 27th overall ranking, which is crazy. I'm so waiting for this Vikings season, just like the most fraudulent 13-win team ever. Negative point differential.
They're not a bad football team.
No,
but they're not the
great
13-4 juggernaut that their record would indicate. They're
should be scared of them.
Team. No, absolutely.
Are you scared of them, man? Like on a 1 to 10 scale, 10 like ultra, the Shining Panic, 1 being Cuddly Bear. Like where are you at?
Do I sound scared?
I've never known you to be scared of anything, to be fair, except the Houston Astros.
Well, what I actually might be scared of, because I've stood next to him a few times, is I might be scared of Dexter Lawrence doing to me what he did to Quentin Nelson and Sam Ehlinger on the same play a couple of weeks ago. I don't know. Did you see that one, RJ?
I did. I mean, you're not scared of Justin Jefferson? I mean, like that is a factor. I feel
the reality is he could run by me. He could run by me, but I don't think I could get close enough for him to hurt me.
Do you get a sense, by the way,
unless I tore an Achilles?
On that note, because that's a good question by RJ. Do we know if Adoree Jackson might be back for this game?
We do not know. Brian Daboll was non-committal on Monday. He said that the Giants are missing 3 defensive players, or were missing 3 defensive players, and 3 key defensive players: Adoree Jackson, Leonard Williams, and Azeez Ojulari, who somehow is second on the team in sacks despite only playing in 7 games. But I suspect that all 3 are going to play.
Okay.
The worry for me is Adoree Jackson hasn't played since week 11. you can't expect him to be at his absolute best and chase Justin Jefferson all around the field and shut him down. You can't expect anybody to do that regardless. But I really would have felt better if Adoree Jackson had gotten a few snaps on Sunday against the Eagles, if the Giants had judged him healthy enough to get him out there and at least work some of the rust off. But those are three key guys that the Giants need.
Adoree Jackson, friend of the SB Nation NFL show, by the way. He plays a lot of NBA 2K. He and I had a conversation about that. That was before he joined the Giants, back when he was still parting ways with the Tennessee Titans. Ed, I think that each of these three teams are in as far as the teams we cover, are in some different spaces. Obviously, everybody wants to win the Super Bowl. Like, that goes without saying. The Giants, I wouldn't call it house money, right? Like, you're here now, you want to win the Super Bowl. Like, I think that's an oversimplification that people sometimes offer. Like, people say, well, they're grateful just to get in. Like, once everybody's in, it's a whole different thing. But I don't know that there's like a pressure on the Giants to win, right? The way there is on Mike McCarthy and the Cowboys is a different example, kind of carrying the weight of the last 30 years or so. The Eagles have a pressure in that they've been the best team in the NFL all season. It's not a historic pressure, but you get what I'm saying? Like, there's different kind of factors going into each of these teams. Do you feel like this is even if this is a one-score game, or if the Giants got blown out TCU style or whatever happened, is there a sense of like, hey, who cares, man? Like, we got here. The Dable era has begun, and it is a very promising one no matter what happens in Minnesota.
Well, look, I've said all year that what was going on with the Giants wasn't really about winning in 2022, that it really wasn't about the end result of this season, that it was about building a foundation so that you're not looking at a team that makes the playoffs once in the next 10 years, like it's been for the Giants for the last decade. So I look at it like the season's already been a success. The Giants are playing with house money, and everything from here on out is gravy. I mean, that said, you don't get there every year, even if you're good. You don't get there every year. You'd like to take advantage of the opportunity. You'd like to see the Giants win a playoff game. And I can't predict that it'll happen. I can't predict a deep playoff run for the Giants, even if they win on Sunday. But I came across an interesting number earlier today. Every time that the Giants have been in the playoffs since 1993, if they've won a game, they've made it to the Super Bowl. Every time they've won a game, they've made it to the Super Bowl. And I'm not predicting that will happen. It's just a very strange number.
Well, let's get you on the record for this game then. This game against the Vikings, where last time I looked at the line, I don't know if it moved since.
It's 3.
Yes. Okay. So the Vikings are 3-point favorites in Minnesota. Do the Giants beat the Minnesota Vikings, Ed? And what's the score?
Oh, you guys are the first ones to get me to go on the record here. I haven't even made my pick for Big Blue View yet.
You'll do it 10 times this week. That's the
of course
nature
I will.
Of this line
of
work.
course I will. And 5 times I'll go each way. But
that's fine.
No, actually, I'm going to pick the Giants to win this game. I simply think that it's a winnable game for the Giants. I think that in the last few weeks, they've shown more on offense than just hand the ball to Saquon Barkley. They've shown the ability to get something done through the air. And I keep looking at the fact that I think it's a close game. And to be honest with you, I keep looking at that 11-0 number for the Vikings this year in one-score games, and just thinking that sooner or later, as Brandon said earlier, sooner or later, a funny bounce or a bad call or a bad break of some sort, something's going to go against Minnesota sooner or later in one of these games. And maybe with my heart more than my head, I have my fingers crossed that it's this week. So I'll go with the Giants. I think the over and under is 48.5. So, I mean, I almost always go under with the Giants simply because of the way that they play. So I'll say 24-21.
Okay.
We talked about that Vikings game here on the mixtape, and I thought that was maybe the best performance of the season for the Giants. I know they lost, but it wasn't inconsequential. But I mean, it wasn't like a blow to the season for the Giants, excuse me, in any way, shape, or form. Obviously, the Colts game was this like masterpiece that they put together in every way except for the Kayvon Thibodeau stuff. But wow, it's going to be fun. If the Giants win, they will be the second NFC East team to win a playoff game at Is it US Bank Field or US Bank Stadium?
US Bank Stadium.
Yeah, obviously the Eagles won the Super Bowl there, so you could get a Giants playoff win there. Cowboys Commanders have to get their own there. Ed Valentine, everybody check out bigblueview.com. Ed will have all of his thoughts, obviously, and all the information you need to know as the week unfolds. Ed, I hope you have cereal for breakfast tomorrow.
Thanks, RJ. Thanks, Brandon. We'll talk to you.
Have a good one, Ed. So we're going to keep going here. Ed is now off to the races, but we're going to take a very quick break to hear a word from our sponsors. Welcome back. Ed was awesome. Actually, nobody knew this, Brandon, but before we started recording, I asked both of you what you had for breakfast on Tuesday because we're recording on Tuesday. You said chips.
Well, let's be clear. I said I didn't have a breakfast.
Right.
Well, I mean,
you literally had chips. Was the
I didn't like wake up and honestly, if I did, there's nothing wrong with it.
Right. Anyway, you're like the kid in Big. Like, I can have pizza. I can have ice cream for breakfast if I want to.
Yeah, why not?
But Ed said he had cereal, and we both asked him what kind, and he refused to answer. So,
well, I think Ed's locked in. Like he doesn't know what cereal he ate. He's grinding on bigblueview.com. Make sure you check that out. By the way, a lot of great Giants coverage and interesting thoughts. I want to talk a little bit, RJ, about the Eagles side of that Giants game from Week 18. Obviously, don't have to rehash the whole thing. It wasn't like the Eagles were going all out to win. Clearly, now it is disappointing. Yes, that they couldn't pull their starters earlier. Absolutely, and give the Giants backups credit for forcing the Eagles into that situation. But by no means at any point in the game did I think they were like actually going to lose. And it was very apparent that there were some fourth down situations where Sirianni probably would have went for it normally, but didn't in this game. They got to the red zone 5 times. They couldn't convert. They're the best red zone team in the NFL this year, by like a decent margin too. So
right.
I really didn't take much meaning out of the game other than that Jalen Hurts got through it healthy. He helped them win the 1 seed, and now they have a week off, and let's just move on.
This was kind of a bare bones week in a lot of senses. And I sort of felt that way, like call it coping with the Cowboys, whatever. But like, I felt like the Eagles kind of got the job done. The Bengals didn't look great in that win against the Ravens. They did early on, right? They kind of faltered near the end. The Bills kind of took on some water near the end of their game, right? Like even the Niners kind of played the Cardinals tight. Like there was a lot of like week 18 energy, you know what I mean? Like for a lot of teams, like, I wouldn't say like teams checked out, but you get what I mean? Like there was a sense of like, this is not the most important game in the world that I feel like a lot of NFL teams had.
It's almost like we didn't need to add a week 18.
I agree with you.
It was just kind of a big waste of time.
I wanted to bring this up with regards to the Eagles. So I saw the Bleeding Green Nation Instagram account did a Q&A, did the Q&A feature on the Instagram story.
Rachel always does that. Yeah.
Right. Rachel's the best. So the question was thoughts after the Eagles beat the Giants and clinch the number 1 seed, right? Like seemingly set up for like an optimistic sort of answer. But again, it was a weird, like, I don't know of a fan base that left week 18 that's in the playoffs that's like, boom, baby. But anyway, these are the answers. The first
Other
one,
than the Niners, yeah.
Well, even then, though, they were kind of like, it was, a little tight, whatever. But anyway, so the first answer, unnerving, struggled to put away Giants' second, third string in must-win game. The second answer, relief. The third answer, in Hurts we trust. The fourth answer, and I feel like this is like the big story among Eagles fans, kind of tired of watching Slay get beat for touchdowns and laughing about it. The next one, the NFC runs through us. We've seen this year how home advantage works in Philly. The next one, painful win, but it's a win. Must play better to have a chance at the Super Bowl. And
that
again,
was my mom. The last one was my mom.
Okay.
Answered that.
Awesome. Like you got the win, home field. It's all locked up. You could take a week to not kind of chill. I understand there's like some anxiety percolating in the ether with regards to the Eagles because it's been like, what was the last quality Eagles win? Even the Bears win wasn't like high quality.
The Giants game, when they just beat the crap out of the Giants, basically.
Right. So like it's going to be a long time, until next Saturday or Sunday that you've seen the Eagles play like an amazing game. But whatever. Not to dismiss the Eagles, but we have a lot to get to. So let's kick this can down the road. Congratulations to the Eagles for winning the division, though.
Yeah, the last thing I'll say is just like, I just think there's a perception that you like need to play well, and that carries. We just saw this with the Cowboys last year. I brought over that example. They scored what 51 points or whatever in week 18, and they scored 17 the next week at home against the 49. Like it doesn't necessarily translate. And again, the 2017 Eagles are the classic example of team that did not play amazing like right before the end of the regular season, and then they looked a little shaky against the Falcons, but ultimately were fine. So it doesn't to me. Maybe it matters a tiny bit, but I have a hard time carrying a ton. And the most important thing is you're the 1 seed. You're gonna buy. Like that's huge.
So you said the classic example. I recognize that they're your classic example, but like I say this all the time. Like in a league that is 100 years old, you can find an example to support anything you want, right? Like you like, oh, this team rested, this team didn't do this, and this did or this did not happen. So yeah, that happened with the Eagles. Another example that people have floated out as of late, the 2009 New Orleans Saints. Do you remember how many games they won before they lost that year? Like what? Because they were the last undefeated team to fall.
Anything about the 2009 New Orleans Saints?
They were 13-0, and I remember this vividly because their first loss was a Saturday night in the Superdome to the Cowboys. The Cowboys knocked them off. That 2009 season, by the way, the Cowboys back-to-back wins over the Eagles in Week 17 and the wild card round of the playoffs. But so the New Orleans Saints get to 13-0. They lose to the Cowboys. The next week, they lose in overtime to the Bucs, and the final week of the regular season, they lose to the Panthers. So they finish literally the regular season. They're 13-0. They finished 13-3. They won the Super Bowl, right? Like, again, you can find an example of anything, whatever, blah, blah, blah. And this is a really good segue. So good job by you into the Cowboys. A lot of Cowboys fans panicking in the streets. And I'm not going to sit here and tell you like, oh, the Cowboys were awesome or there's no reason to be worried. I think there's reason to be worried if you're a fan of any NFL team, first of all. But like all this like, oh, man, if they play in like this. So PFF's charting of this had the Cowboys is running 3 plays off of play action. And Dan Quinn said himself on Monday that the Cowboys are kind of trying some things out. Like, again, I understand that the 1 seed was available. The division was available. It was so unlikely, though, especially once we knew early in the week that Davis Webb was going to be playing. I know that game got tight in the end, blah, blah, blah. It did feel like, and there's some contradicting elements here, which make it impossible to like talk about this cleanly, but it did feel like the Cowboys were satisfied with just kind of like not punting the game, but sort of playing for another week. I mean, you don't, based on who we know the Cowboys to be, you don't run 3 plays off of play action if you're trying with all your might to win this game.
Yeah, I don't think the Cowboys were trying with all their might, but it is a little weird that they were also not trying. Like they weren't doing what the Giants did.
That's what I meant by the contradiction. And like I feel so. I said I don't know how well you were watching this game because obviously the Eagles were playing at the same time, but the Cowboys led a touchdown drive, their only touchdown drive at the end of the first half. And at halftime, the Eagles score was 16-0 at halftime, right?
I guess, yeah.
Yeah. So at halftime, I tweeted like, you know what, like. I'm fine at this point if you're McCarthy. Pull everybody, you know, and that's one of those like weird things, right? Like when's the right time? Do you want to pull out? Like it's like when you're playing basketball on your driveway and you're like, I got to go in off of a make sort of thing. But he didn't. And so I do think that the plan was get the starters, you know, couple series, couple drives, whatever, hopefully put something good out there. Eagles and Niners maybe going to run away with this thing and everything kind of works itself out. But then, you know, it didn't like totally happen that way. Like the Eagles were comfortably winning, but it like from a mathematical standpoint, it wasn't like a boat racing. So you're kind of in this weird half in between place and the Cowboys aren't playing well. And so at that point you're pot committed, right? You can't like pull them, be like, well, you suck and you stunk it up. So let me get you out of here because then that's weird. It was just a weird kind of game they had to get through.
Weird how Dak Prescott just keeps throwing interceptions.
Oh,
it is not stopping. I mean, he has 10 in his 12 games this year. Leads the NFL despite missing 5 games or whatever. Like that's insane. And I do think, you know, is a case of more than one thing can be true where yes, he's looked, I think he's definitely had a lot of good moments, but it's kind of like maybe this speaks to what the Cowboys are this season as a whole. They're like a team with some high highs and some low lows, or like a team that's inconsistent, a team that has been maybe mostly good, but the bad has been really bad, and you're concerned about that. And it doesn't seem like it's going away. It doesn't. I mean, maybe it does. It's not just bad luck. You don't lead the NFL in interceptions like this, and it's just all unlucky. That's just not the case. And most of them have been like pick sixes. So it's not just like, you know, some of that maybe some. It's not just like, you know, interceptions deep down the field. He's taking a chance. He's being aggressive,
or like and they're not all tipped balls. Like, and that's the weird thing is like there's a necessary conversation, right? Because the conversation becomes like leads the NFL in interceptions, despite, you know what I mean? Like despite missing this, or like et cetera, et cetera. Like he has no in between this year. Like I've said, I feel like 90% of his game this season has been incredible. But the 10% that hasn't been not incredible. It's been really bad. You know what I'm saying?
And it's like a heavy 10%. It's not like
that's exactly my point. Yeah. Like, and so it makes for this like weird dichotomy, like where you're like, well, I think the 90% is enough, right? But like if that 10%, if like the 10% moment shows up at the wrong moment, like it's enough to lose you the game. And like the Jaguars example isn't a good one because that one wasn't his fault. But like there's so many now that you're like, well, that one was, and that one wasn't, and this one, and that one was tipped and whatever. And so like up until this past week, I wouldn't say comfortable, but I felt like at peace with the situation, right? Like it's just a weird phenomenon. He had the one against the Titans the week before on Thursday night that was just really an unfortunate tip situation. And this past one, like I'm kind of not willing, but kind of like understanding like it was just a weird game. They all kind of threw it away and they were just, for whatever reason, fine, playing poorly in the lead up to the playoffs. But then again, I talked myself into the like, well, they put up 51 points, and I do think you made it too big of a deal about this a year ago, but they felt good about themselves after that win in Philly,
I think
right?
They felt too good. Yeah,
well,
honestly.
And I don't know that you remember the specifics, but they accomplished all sorts of like team accolades. Zeke got 1,000 yards on the season. They set a record for the most number of players on their team to score a touchdown on the season, and they were walking tall, and they were like, we just scored 51 points. No way Jimmy Garoppolo's coming here to beat us. And sure enough, that's exactly what happened. And so I mean, like, I guess I feel good. For what it's worth, I guess as we spin forward and kind of talk about all of this, the Cowboys opened as 3-point favorites on the road against the Bucs. That is now down to 2.5. They are still, they're one of two road favorites, the only two road favorites, both playing in Florida, the Chargers against the Jaguars. The Cowboys are the largest road favorite of the week, just for what it's worth.
Yeah, I mean, I think it comes down to like you just feel like you can get one off like a deck. That's what I said going into the Eagles Cowboys game. It feels like you're going to be able to get that. It's not like,
and that's such a good. I really don't want to interrupt you. I know I get accused of that all the time, but like that's such a good example because like you get it right, and so you're thinking, not you specifically, but you're thinking like, boom, we got it. Like that was going to happen, but then he's like perfect. You know what I'm saying? So like it's like which is going to be like what is going to be the driving force for the result of this game? The one you get or everything else?
Yeah, I just think he gives you a chance. Is what I'm trying to say. Like he gives you a chance that you can capitalize on that, and maybe you do, maybe you don't. But he's going to give you that chance. Whereas some other quarterbacks are taking care of the ball better. Like I'm not so sure. Like I don't know if Joe Burrow, for example, different conversation, but I don't know if he's going to give you that chance. So I think that's something to wonder about. This Bucs team is not good. In fact, they are very bad. I know the Bucs have not beaten Tom Brady, it's not like an irrelevant thing. It doesn't mean everything because there's obviously been so many iterations of the Cowboys over that 7-0 span. But there is something maybe to Brady, like being this high profile, obviously player who maybe relishes in beating America's team, quote unquote, which is a silly nickname. The Bucs are 17th in DVOA, 25th in point differential. And obviously that was knocked down a little bit because they, pulled some starters against the Falcons in week 18 there. But the vibes have been off with them the whole year. Hasn't looked right. At the same time, it's Tom Brady in the playoffs, and it could be his last time with the Bucs. It's hard to write off entirely. It feels like matchup wise, Cowboys should have this. Their pass rush against the Bucs' shaky offensive line should be enough to get it done. But the Bucs have played the Cowboys well, and if Tom Brady's getting the ball fast, like I don't know, I'm going to take the Cowboys probably just to spoil my pick in this game. But I do think it's going to be it's going to be.
You can lay the points too, 2.5.
Yeah, I'll give the points. Yes.
Oh, sorry. Yeah.
And I'm going to make that my lock.
Yeah.
I'm going to make that my lock of the week for the SB Nation NFL show.
Of course you are.
I'm just claiming it now here on the pod. But I'm pretty good. I'm 12-6 in my locks, by the way.
A few weeks ago, we had our first ever lock off, which is a really popular term in this space. I don't think any of us have ever locked up the same game. I know we kind of have a rule against that, but like this is kind of a different. Once you get to the playoffs, like it's some different circumstances.
I think we have to do different games in the playoffs until we can't anymore, which would be the championship round.
I don't know about that.
We'll see.
We'll talk about those stats. Yeah, it's true. So I agree with everything you're saying. I do want to say something on Dak before I pivot elsewhere here. so like we talked about regression, right? Like when it comes to the Vikings, right? Like at some point, like maybe not regression, but like at some point, like the luck runs out, right? Like at some like, but that regression happens positively and negatively, right? Like we talk about that a lot, like with regards, and that was like something that was a big talking point in the offseason. Like the turnover is going to go away for the Cowboys. Like there's no way they can have that many turnovers. Lo and behold, they were the one. like amazingly, they were the one team to kind of survive that. Similarly, we talk about like injury regression, right? Like in 2020, the Niners and Cowboys had the most games lost due to injury. That bounced back for them in 2021. So at some point, and it may not be in the playoffs, it may not be this week, whatever, but at some point, like this fluky interception thing will regress for Dak, right? Like in all likelihood, the math of life.
I don't know. That's the case.
The math of life suggests that he's thrown an interception in 7 straight games, which is just incredible to think about. Do you know what his longest streak was prior to this?
No.
It was 4 games, like throughout his entire career. So you're talking about if he throws an interception in the wild card. I know, things aren't charted the same or counted the same, whatever. But if he throws an interception, that would be literally doubling the longest streak of his career. Like I said, at some point, even if it's next season, that will chill out and regress a little bit. And so kind of the hope is like maybe it regresses here in the playoffs and you don't have to deal with that or whatever. I'm with you. The reason this game is like exhausting, or I was gonna say frustrating, but maybe annoying is the best word, is because of the like narrative pieces, right? Like Tom Brady, the GOAT, 7-0. Like it's just, you can't like run from that. It's so annoying and silly. Because you're right. Like, does the Tom Brady who beat the Cowboys in 2015 when Brandon Whedon started, like, does that mean anything? Does it mean anything that Amari Cooper couldn't beat Stephon Gilmore in 2019 when Dallas went to New England? Like, those things mean nothing.
Yeah. But well, I don't know if it means nothing on the whole. I think it means a little bit more than nothing, but certainly not everything.
I do wonder if, like, we talk about like how that overwhelms teams. Like this Cowboys team really wants it. Like really, I mean, everybody does. Like I hate that too. Like they really want it, but they really want to beat Tom Brady. They came so close in the season opener last year. That really great game that was a back and forth. The season opener this year obviously stunk. But I mean, if they're gonna like just destroy Tom Brady, end his time in Tampa or retire him, whatever. I mean, the person who we're not talking about enough, I don't think, and I don't mean to say he's not a great player, but is Micah Parsons. Micah, where are you at, dude? Like that's what.
Well, is it him or is it the team?
I mean, okay, we whatever, but like it is like he's been, I would like, MIA is not the right way to put it because he's still pressuring the quarterback at this insane level, but we're missing the like Micah moments. And those are the things that have been catalytic that have been absent for the last 2 weeks. And that makes it sound like they've lost 100 games in a row when they haven't. But like you're entering a phase where like you're going to have those moments almost on a weekly basis.
I think this is a great, criticism by you. I think star players too often can skate by on, and I get it because they're really good, and it's not like you need to say Micah Parsons sucks. That's not the point. But I think it can be overlooked sometimes that you don't just need. It's not good enough if Micah Parsons like has a good postseason for the Cowboys. No, he needs to be like Micah Parsons star level, highlight player kind of talent in the postseason. Like we're talking about TJ Watt kind of like impact in the like that kind of more, or at least more approaching that. To kind of make this about the Eagles again real quick. I've been saying that about Darius Slay recently. It's not that he's like stunk, but Darius Slay has like a 26 point something million cap number on the Eagles. He's taking up 13% of the Eagles cap number this year. Like he's not just you can't
to be silly fan, it's like that's why you're paid. Like that you're like that's why you get the attention you do, is because you're supposed to be the author of these big moments.
Right. And it's not just good enough if Darius Slay is a good starting quarterback. No, he needs to be an elite cornerback. He needs to do what he did in week 2, which I know he can do. I'm not saying he can't do this. And like shut down Justin Jefferson if he faces him. Not allow Justin Jefferson to go, for like, let's just say, like 90 and a touchdown in a loss. Like that's not good enough. Like you need to shut this guy. If you're like the star, and especially if you're going to talk a big game too, and you're going to be like, hey, why am I not getting more love? Why am I not getting all pro consideration? Go out and earn it. I mean, so I to make it back to Parsons, like, yeah, I think it needs to be that situation where he has a dominant postseason, and he hasn't been that player recently. I have a question for you if you have nothing else left.
I was just going to say, I would put Dak into that category, right? Like the superstar, everything, blah, blah, blah. But like this happens with the Cowboys a lot because like they're the Cowboys and the jokes and the memes, but like it can be about more than Dak, right? Like, you know what I mean? Like you can talk about like there have to be like, and like it's some of the players who I think like that we want to put in this box have like CeeDee Lamb has been incredible, like as of late, but like CeeDee, you got to do it again. It's Trayvon Diggs, you got to step up. DeMarcus has been awesome, but like you got to step up. Tony Pollard, it's time. Zeke, it's time. You know what I mean? Like all these dudes, like that the time is now. Like, it's been a long year. You waited an entire year to get back here. You talked all about how embarrassing it was, how you got punched in the mouth, how you were soft, whatever. You blamed the officials. All that's in the past. You have a chance to quiet a lot of it. And like, this is like, and Ed talked about, I know you have your question, but like how he's, this kind of worked out for the Vikings, for the Giants, excuse me. This is, and this gets like taken out of context, but like, this is the best situation the Cowboys could have been in. I mean, if you have to play a division winner this week, you don't want to play the Eagles, you don't want to play the Niners. I believe in the Vikings more than most people. I mean, you get to play arguably the worst team in the NFC playoff picture. You can make an argument that Tampa is. Obviously, it's not a strong argument, but they have looked that way as of late. And you get to do it in a warm climate. You don't have to go somewhere cold. You don't have to go to Green Bay. You don't have to deal with this. I was playing this game on an Instagram live I do with one of our guys, Chris, on Monday. Do you know the Bucs' last few wins?
I mean, they beat the Saints at one point, that comeback.
So I'm not like, I don't put stock into their loss against Atlanta.
They beat the Panthers.
That was the division clincher. They beat the Panthers. So that was their most recent win. What about the win? Their second most recent win? That's my question for you.
I don't even remember.
It was the overtime win against the Trace McSorley Cardinals.
You know I didn't even know that went to overtime. Wow. Okay. Yeah.
Yeah. Like that was the that was the latest like national round of dumping on the Bucs in the NFC South. Like it took all of their might to beat the Trace McSorley led Cardinals, whose head coach just got fired. You know what I mean? Like, this is the best chance you have. Everyone wants to talk about like road playoff wins. They don't have any. Go get one. You know what I mean? You're lucky that you're not playing like prime Tom Brady. I know he's still Tom Brady, whatever, but like, go get it. And like, it will be a little hollow because it's not the same Tom Brady, but you can put this one on your mantle. You go beat Tom Brady at his house on the road, a game you're favored in prime time. This game is going to like destroy NFL ratings. Do you know how many outlets are carrying this game?
What, like ESPN, ABC?
So ESPN, ESPN2, ESPN Plus, and ABC. Like the total viewership for this is going to be out there. And
what about the Ochoa?
That's me. But like, even if they don't win the Super Bowl, and my point is not like, oh, if you beat the Bucs and Brady, like boom, season is a success. But even if they don't, this win will quiet a lot of the like typical Cowboys meme chatter, and you have a chance. You have a chance to end a lot of that, or at least subside it right now. And if you don't, it's on you. You know what I mean? Like you waited, you begged, you pleaded, you asked, you earned this opportunity. So go cash in.
I actually have two questions, but first a quick comment to kind of wrap up, put a bow on the Parsons, Dak, Darius Slay, these kind of players who need to step up. It can't just be, well, they weren't the reason we lost. I hate when like that's justification for star players sometimes. Well, they weren't bad. They weren't the reason we lost. That's not good enough. Like you need to be like, that's not always.
I think that can be true for quarterbacks. Like you can have like an elite quarterback performance where your team loses like 51 to 40.
It can be true, but it's also, if that's the best thing you have to say and it happens multiple times in big spots, then they are the reason you lost. If they're just not the reason you lost.
All I'm saying is, you remember the Cowboys Broncos game from 2013, the like crazy back and forth, about 1 million point scored game. Like that game comes to mind. Like I don't place any of that game on Tony Romo, but like I don't think anybody ever placed any blame for that game on DeMarcus Ware. Like he's probably going to be a Hall of Famer in a month, and it's like nobody like blamed him at all for that loss. For Peyton, remember the Peyton Manning like jog into the end zone, like
bootleg,
yeah. Like where's your like Hall of Fame, outside linebacker pass rusher? Like that's my point.
Two questions. Number one, because you talked about what can make this Cowboys season kind of a success. I'm assuming Mike McCarthy is safe if the Bucs win the game and the Cowboys get eliminated. Is that the case?
So Jerry Jones was on 105 through the Fan today for us on Tuesday and said yes. Like he said that it's not a question, blah, blah, blah. Even, whatever happens, that Mike McCarthy's safe. That should be the case. But because of the Cowboys, because Sean Payton, blah, 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 Dan Quinn, blah, 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 he's been requested by the Denver Broncos for an interview. It will be a talking point. But like the idea that the Cowboys should move on from Mike McCarthy is so silly. I'm fresh. I can't wait for Sean Payton to get another job. So like this is no longer a story.
And then last thing, what do you make of Jason Garrett talking about the grass and how the Cowboys are 1-4 on such surfaces this season, with the one win being against the Tennessee Titans, who are playing their backups, of course?
I have a point on the backups that I want to get to in a moment. But I mean, it's a thing, right? Like you can't say it's insignificant. You know what I mean? Like I don't think it's like the most significant thing in the world, but like And I tried to make this point with you in stats last week about the Vikings and all the whining they did about Lambeau. Because the same thing happened to the Cowboys. Mike McCarthy, when the Cowboys played the Packers, he was like, "Hey, wear your long cleats, your metal cleats, whatever, blah blah." Like, I mean, obviously he knew, and I mean, it's not like the Cowboys didn't know, like whatever. But find a way, dude. Like a grass, whatever. I mean, and you know what? If you win this game, you're probably gonna have to go to Philly. There's grass there. If you have to go to San Francisco, there's grass there. You know what I mean? Like, if your biggest complaint is the surface that you're playing on, you know, like I think it's something you have to consider though. Like, and so I understand Jason Garrett because he's had those conversations and also like he's prepped for it or whatever.
Right. That's like, I always think about where's that coming from? Because that's not just like Jason Garrett randomly just sitting there and being like, you know, he's not just, someone said that to him or someone put that in his ear, I feel like, or there's something.
I disagree with that. I think he's had those conversations, right? Like, because they've, like, Jason Garrett's Cowboys played playoff games. He played a playoff game in Lambeau. You know what I mean? Like, he went to Philly a lot. You know what I mean? Like, so I think Jason knows, like, okay, like this is the sort of rhythm we go through here.
All right. I think that's all I had.
My backup quarterback thing. So the Cowboys lost to Sam Howell. Oh, Sam Howell, blah, blah. I mean, I don't know that we have to dedicate much time to the Commanders on this episode. We'll do our Commanders.
I want to get your take on Howell because I didn't really get to see him.
We'll get there in a moment then. But so I talked about this with you guys on the NFL show. This was the third week in a row the Cowboys played a quarterback making his first start of the season. The second week in a row, they played a quarterback making his first career NFL start. So the last, like, you know, legit quarterback they played was Trevor Lawrence, right? And they lost, right? They played Gardner Minshew, who played very well and didn't play very well after that. They played Josh Dobbs, who I thought played well on Saturday night as well, even though the Titans lost.
Mostly early in the game, yeah, and he fell
right.
apart,
I'm very interested to watch that unfold just from afar in the offseason, but different subject. And then played Sam Howell. So this is not an excuse or anything, but like it is difficult. It's not the same process. Difficult's not the right word. It's not the same to prep for, like, you know, okay, let's go watch like Sam Howell's college tape. You know what I mean? Like again, harder is not the right word, but like it's different as opposed to like Tom Brady. And again, like my presentation is not, it's easier to prep for Tom Brady than it is Sam Howell, but like it does throw you off your process to start, like, all of a sudden you got to prep for Josh Dobbs and Sam Howell when you have this normal, you know, kind of sequence of events. It's just a weird kind of thing, but you got to find a way at the end of the day.
I mean, it's a good problem to have. You will take that problem to have. Oh no, we have to prepare for Josh Dobbs or Sam Howell. You'll sign up for that.
We'll make our official picks and then set up what we believe to be the divisional round in a moment. But the Washington Commanders, they win. So, by the way, the Commanders now have a worse draft pick, and it came at no consequence to the Cowboys. So the Cowboys kind of fell on that grenade for everybody in the division.
Yeah.
So Commanders finish 8-1. They are the only NFC East team not a part of the playoff picture. Tough scene there. It seems like Ron Rivera is going to be safe, right? Like we didn't really have a lot of firings on Monday. I know there were already a lot of openings, but like who was fired on Monday? Just Cliff? Because Lovey was fired on Sunday night?
Yes, I guess. I think it doesn't really make sense to fire Rivera now, right? In terms of like the new ownership looming. Like you're gonna, like, the current ownership's gonna bring in a new head coach just to sell the team, and then the new, like, I don't know. It doesn't really seem to make
the timing of it all, because like even if you like if there was a transition in ownership in like the summer, you can't hire a new coach in June. You know what I mean? Like it's just the timing of it all works in Ron Rivera's favor in that.
Yeah, I think you have to ride it out with him, give him one last chance, and then you'll flip that switch next offseason when you have a new ownership and everything.
Okay, so I agree with you. So Ron Rivera appears safe. Sam Howell, I thought looked okay. I don't think anybody making their first start of Week 18 can look great enough to where you're like, well, we don't have to address this position at all in the offseason. But like he definitely looked like, hey, you know, like
there's something there.
Right. I mean, low bar to clear when it comes to the Commanders, obviously. This was the Cowboys' first loss to the Commanders, by the way.
Wow.
So the Commanders, who did not beat the Giants this season, but did beat both the Eagles and the Cowboys.
Only the Giants have not lost, not undefeated, have not lost to the Commanders.
So, yeah, I mean, you know, the Cowboys in this game, I know the question's about Sam Howell, but Kevontae Turpin muffed a punt, and that set them up with a short field. Brian Anger couldn't field a punt he was going to punt, and that set them up with a short field. So it's not like Sam Howell was like driving up and down the field 80 yards every time. He did have this incredible throw to Terry McLaurin later in the game where like I'm saying, at that moment you were like, okay, this dude can make an NFL throw. So I think he certainly has to be a part of their plans for the future. But again, they have a lot of things to address, and I think the quarterback position is among them.
Yeah, it sounds like, Scott Turner going to be gone, new offensive coordinator probably. You went 11-19 for 169, 8.9 yards per attempt in your first start is pretty good. I know he had
the big bomb to McLaurin inflated that just a little bit, but sure. I mean, I'm not trying to take away from the performance. It was really good.
Also had 5 for 35 on the ground and a rushing touchdown as well. So, has some mobility to him. I mean, I wasn't the biggest Howell guy leading into the draft, especially when originally there was thought he might be like a first round pick or something. I remember watching him against maybe I don't remember the other team. I don't know if it was Michigan State. I remember watching him early in the season last year, and I was like, this guy's gonna be like a top pick. Like, no way, this dude stinks. But then I think that got way overcorrected. Almost like once upon a time, I think the discourse on Jalen Hurts went too far. I actually liked Hurts going into the 2020 draft relative to where everyone else was on him. I was like everyone else was like, oh, this guy definitely just wrote him off completely. I was like, no, I think he's an interesting prospect. Obviously, I had my doubts about him. I didn't think he was going to be this good. Never, to be clear. But I thought I think the point being, he almost got so overrated that he became underrated. I think Howell kind of got in that territory where people are a little too harsh on him and not giving him any kind of chance. And I think where the Commanders got him was pretty good value in the draft. And yeah, we'll see. He probably should have been playing earlier. I mean, why go to Wentz when they did, when you could throw him in instead? Is that a surefire option? No. But if you're the point of going to Wentz was kind of swing for the upside. Well, I don't know. Maybe your rookie has some upside. Why don't you put him in? And worst case scenario, if he doesn't, okay, at least we learned something about him. There was nothing to learn about playing Carson Wentz when they did. You weren't learning anything. You might have at least learned something. Even if Howell was bad, you would have been like, okay, this dude might not be good. He might stink, which is more valuable than seeing Carson Wentz struggle again.
Did you buy that Taylor Heineke took himself out of consideration to start last week? Did you buy that story? That he was actually, no, Sam's looked really good. Sam deserves an opportunity to start.
No, that's insane. You get money for playing in the NFL. We're playing. There's playing time incentives. There's the I forget the performance. When you play a certain amount of snaps, when you don't make so much money, you get. So no, it doesn't make
certain percentage of snaps. Not necessarily right. No, I agree with you. I think Taylor Heineke was working the PR machine overdrive last week, and I'm fine with that. You know what I mean? But I
don't fault him for any of that. I don't fault him for wanting to play, but then saying he doesn't want to play. I don't fault him, but
no, exactly. And then the cherry on top was the Shane Falco jersey that he wore both during the week and on the way to the stadium. Like I said, Taylor Heineke was making sure all I's were dotted and T's were crossed. And again, play the game, Taylor Heineke, get yours, get the bag, get your Jordans or whatever. But again, this idea that oh no, Taylor saw Sam and knew that it was okay. Sure. I bet Carson agreed as well. Sure.
Falco Lombardi from Star Fox. I love Falco.
Do we think the Commanders, and we have a lot of time in the offseason. I had a question on our postgame show at BCB whether the mixtape would continue in the offseason. Duh. What else would we do?
We have literally never missed a week of the mixtape since it was incepted.
And I had a kid in that run. Yeah.
I missed, I think, just the
one episode. You missed one episode, yeah.
Because I had to. I was doing training camp, and we still had representation. That's the first time we had Maul on. He was good talking about the Commanders. Said they were going to win 10 games this year. I think did not win 10 games.
They came closer than I think we would have thought.
Technically 1.5 games off if you count the ties, half a win. So yeah, not terrible. Did they beat their over? Probably right.
Stats is the one who keeps all that stuff, so we can ask him. But I imagine that they did.
I'm guessing. I'm pretty sure their over was.
I would bet all 4 teams in the division beat their over because I think Dallas was 10.5.
Yeah, probably.
So I mean, and I don't know what Philly was, but I bet it was 9.5.
NFC maybe. Beast.
Oh, dude, seriously.
It's crazy because we came up with that and no one thinks we did, which I don't understand.
I don't like to take as much credit for this, but we also came up with NFC least. You know what I mean? Credit us, true. Please. Wow.
I have a review I want to read before the show ends. When do you want to do that?
Go ahead. I have to text my wife, so this is a good time for you to do
okay. Big flex by you. This is from Trey Waddle. Trey Waddle 27 is the name on Apple Podcasts. Leave a rating review on any of the NFC East mixtape feeds. Bleeding Green Nation, Logging the Boys, Hogs Haven, Big Blue View, and we will read it, ideally, at some point. Trey says, I hate Cowboys fans, but I guess RJ is tolerable sometimes.
This is on the BGN?
Yes. Okay. BGN. BLG is the absolute man, of course. Also, when the Eagles beat the Cowboys Christmas Eve, RJ has to finally admit Hurts is the best quarterback in the division. Crying face emoji. So clearly, this is from a while ago. Didn't happen that way. Also, BLG said a while back that he listens to Circus Survive, and that made me like him even more than I already did. Anthony Green is an Eagles fan, by the way. If you didn't know, go Birds, baby. Update. Y'all skipped my review. Rolling eyes emoji face. So sorry, Trey, that we were late to it. And it didn't necessarily age well. Yes, big Circus Survive fan. Our good friend Brendan Ekstrom, RJ, is the guitarist in that band, and he listens to the Bleeding Your Nation podcast feed. We've had him on before. I don't know if he's a faithful mixtape listener, but I do think he knows who you are, and he definitely has listened sometimes. And Anthony Green, by the way, is the singer from that band. So there you go.
I have 2 reviews to read, but I wanted to bring this up. So we have some, like there's a small Venn diagram sector of NFC Beast mixtape listeners and Survivor fans. Did you see my tweet about the Cowboys win-loss pattern this season? This is something I haven't said this on the BTB
This
is
the most cope thing you've ever done.
So like, to be very clear here, like this, like
I know it's a bit, but
I know
you also believe in the bit.
No, like I do some things to cope. Like I'm not above admitting that like there are some things where I cope, but some things are just for fun. Some things are like, haha, this is silly, and nobody could recognize this. In case anyone is unaware, the Cowboys lost their first game of the season and then won 4 in a row. Then they lost to the Eagles, notably, and then they won 2 in a row. That was kind of the cycle. Then they lost again and won 4 games in a row. They lost and won 2 games in a row. Now they've lost. So the trend would suggest that the Cowboys, the pattern trend, whatever you want to call it, that they would win 4 games in a row. That's what is up next in the pattern. 4 games would be the wild card round, divisional round, NFC championship game, and the Super Bowl. So boom, roasted. We actually have 2 reviews here on the Blog on the Boys podcast network. The first one, very short. 5-star rating. I assumed yours were 5 stars. Comes to us from SEK_05. I'm not a fan of the underscore personally. So it's hard to get to on the keyboard, and I never remember if I have to press shift or if I don't. But it's titled NFC Beast, and it's simple. Best pod to the little brothers of the Philadelphia Eagles. The next one I think is more apt for especially the last few weeks. You and I have done a great job of kind of like burying the hatchet that, was sort of like unburied on Christmas Eve. 5-star rating from Let It Fly 35, titled NFC East Mixtape. Here we go. What a coincidence that all these reviews left by Eagles fans coming for RJ happened after Dallas put a 40 burger on Philly. BLG had his victory lap when Philadelphia beat the Cowboys in October, and Cowboys fans had to eat that. Nothing wrong with how RJ handled the show last week. Love you both as a duo and really support both of your work. Looking forward to a hopeful third meeting between the Cowboys and the Eagles. Look at that.
Well, on that note, we should probably get into the predictions.
That's what I'm doing here, dude. That's like the segue that I'm making. I actually have I wanted to ask you this random question at the beginning, like I kind of like to do. But Ed was here. I wouldn't say Ed ruined it. Well, I'm send it up. So like if you watch a video on your phone, right? Like you open a video to watch it and you rotate it. What way do you rotate your phone?
Like where the power button, which side of the power button is on?
Yeah. So like, you're looking at your phone, you're holding it like standard. Do you rotate it to where the power button, the lock button, let's call it the lock button.
Yeah, I think it's
on the bottom
button on top.
So you rotate it, you rotate it counterclockwise. Then is what you're saying.
For the audio listeners, you should go to the Bleeding Your Nation or Blogging the Boys YouTube because we're showing you, we're demonstrating what we do. Yeah, because I think this is a natural motion for me here with my thumb on the volume buttons. That just makes sense to me.
But the volume buttons are on the bottom for you.
Yes,
is what you're saying.
Yeah.
See, when I do it the opposite way, and I use I use my left hand to kind of like cup the sound. You know what I'm saying? And if I have to hold it with one hand, I'm using my left hand. And then I have my right index finger, I'm right-handed, available to adjust the volume.
Yeah, I'm right-handed too. But for whatever reason, I use my left hand for the volume.
Let's go have everybody tweet at us at Brandon Gowton on Twitter and Instagram, at RJ Ochoa on Twitter and Instagram, and let us know what direction you rotate your phone with the hashtag rotate.
No, that's not a good. That's
why not? That's a good one.
No, because you're not going to be able to see because that's probably a very commonly used hashtag.
Okay, then what hashtag do you suggest, Grandmaster?
Hashtag mixtape rotate.
That's so much for people to type out.
I know.
That's why I'm trying to be simple. Just go with hashtag rotate. That's fine.
No,
we'll deal with
don't do that. Don't do that. No, I'm saying you can't do that. It's
okay.
We're not going to track it. I'm not going to see what
you can tweet at us and you pick the hashtag. Whoever you are,
that's
loyal
dumb.
listener,
that doesn't
loyal
make any
viewer,
sense. Then it's
and
not linked.
We'll see which
so
hashtag
dumb.
people use. Either hashtag rotate or hashtag mixtape rotate.
Mixtape, rotate. And by the way, if you're a real one, you'll tweet that at us with your phone in landscape mode while you're rotating it.
I never type that way, like on my
phone. Same. That's a psycho move.
It's strange. Like you want to watch a video, play a game, whatever, but like if you're typing or texting that way, that is too much for me.
I had to do some of that because I think
your phone had the thing,
and I felt like such a psycho, like in public, having to like rotate my phone like that. And then this guy is unwell.
Wow.
But it's all good now.
Okay,
let's get to some predictions.
So first of all, I saw a note from Mike Clay when we started recording that all 6 playoff games this weekend and the Super Wild Card weekend are rematches. Did you know that?
That makes sense.
Every
also, by
single
the way, Mike Clay from ESPN, right?
Right.
It's just hitting me that Mike Clay is an Eagles fan, by the way. I don't know if you knew that. The Eagles have a special coordinator. Their special teams coordinator is named Michael Clay. So I don't know why that didn't click with me until now. But
actually, okay. Last thing before predictions. So at this moment, as of noon Central Time on Tuesday, January 10th, Dan Quinn is the only Cowboys coach that has been requested to interview with another team, and that team is the Denver Broncos. That's it. Nothing for Kellen Moore. No other requests for Dan Quinn. As mentioned, the head coach openings at the moment are the Colts, Panthers, Broncos, Texans, and Cardinals. And as I understand it, both Jonathan Gannon and Shane Steichen have been requested, or just
Steichen's been requested by the Colts, Texans, and Panthers. Gannon's been requested by the Texans and was previously considered a front runner for the Texans job last year prior to the NFL getting sued and then the whole Lovie Smith situation. So, yeah.
And that's kind of the situation Quinn is in with the Broncos. Not that he was a front runner for the job, but he was in the mix last year for that. I don't know if we've ever had 2 teams both looking for head coaches in back-to-back years. That's what's happening with the Broncos and Texans. That's really strange. I didn't tweet this because I didn't know how to like condense it, my point, and have enough context. I do think it's interesting that like Steichen and Gannon, as one example, have all these requests lined up, and Ben Johnson has a lot of requests lined up, right? Dan Quinn only has 1. I think that's interesting. Like I feel like, to me, that suggests his odds of becoming a head coach this offseason are much lower than they were last year, unless the Broncos like are absolutely in love with him. You know what I mean? But like, it's interesting that like nobody else, like the Panthers are talking to Frank Reich. You know what I mean? Like Jim Harbaugh's in the mix. Like, I just think that's really interesting that Dan Quinn so far has only drawn 1 request.
Yeah, we'll see. There's obviously time for there to be more.
Right, but I mean, if you're getting in these, and I know the Eagles have the bye, so maybe that's why. But like, whatever. But okay, let's you want to pick we'll do all the playoff games with stats. You want to do?
Yeah, we'll just do the NFC ones here.
So Ed took the Giants, so he's obviously taken the 3 points. The Minnesota Vikings, as of this moment, are 3-point favorites at home.
Well, we should go in order. We should do Saturday, Sunday, Monday.
You want to do all of them?
We'll do all the NFC playoff games.
I'm sorry. My bad. I thought you said NFCs.
Okay. That impacts the division.
So we're only going to do the NFC side. We'll do it all with stats on the NFL show. Okay.
Listen to the SB Nation NFL show.
So the Seahawks are visiting the Niners on Saturday. That is the first playoff game. The Niners are 10-point favorites. I will say the like proverbial can't beat a team 3 times in 1 year thing is hanging out here.
That's not true. Data doesn't really bear that out.
I know, but like the talking point, that's all I'm saying. Like it's a thing. Like it's like kind of like the the stuff we've talked about earlier, like the grass thing. It's a thing that you should say out loud and talk about.
I mean, Seahawks might be able to cover because that's a lot of points in the playoff game, but Seahawks resume, if you want to talk about like how the Bucs have played recently,
right?
I mean, how have the Seahawks played recently? Like, what have they done? Okay, they beat the Jets. Great.
And they beat the Jets when the Jets were falling apart.
Yes.
They didn't beat the same Jets that everybody else got.
Yeah, on New Year's Day. After that, they had to go to OT to beat the Rams, a Rams team they also struggled against earlier in the season. Rams team that's not any good. They lost by 14 in Kansas City. They just got beat by the 49ers at home by 8 points in mid-December. Lost to the Panthers. They lost to the Raiders in overtime. They lost to the Bucs, who you just said might be the worst team in the playoffs. I don't know. I mean,
Yeah, I mean, it's a question I would ask, but the Seahawks are the worst team.
Yeah, I'm not trying to slam you. I'm just saying,
right.
I think the Seahawks lost to the team that you said is the worst team. So, they're certainly down there, and obviously they're the 7th seed. So, yeah, I have a tough time thinking the Seahawks are going to win this one. I will take the 49ers. I don't take them to cover. I mean, again, I think the Seahawks have a shot to cover, but the 49ers team is hot right now. They're rolling, and not a team I'm going to bet against.
I'm totally with you. I'll come back to the point I'm going to make, but I'm with you. I'll take the Niners and I'll lay the points. Okay, so we have the Niners advancing.
If the Seahawks did win, to be clear, I just want to mention they would automatically play the Eagles in the divisional round
as the lowest seed, right? Okay. So we're both taking the Niners, both laying the points. Ed took the Giants. That's what I was getting at. Vikings 3-point favorites at home. Literally just the 3-point home field advantage. Like no, no like extra whatever.
Even
Vegas
matchup.
Vegas thinks they're frauds. Everybody, blah blah blah. I'll go first. I'll take the Vikings. I well, like part of it is like
you should make this your lock if you're so confident.
It's not a bit, but like I've come this far. You know what I mean? Like, and they
some cost fallacy, my man.
When we have this conversation and Stats is a part of it, Stats says something that I don't agree with philosophically. He'll be like, well, like, some like the luck is partly skill. I get that, like I get that argument, but like it is so fluky. You know what I mean? Like I just you can't flip a coin 100 times in a row and have it land on heads.
Right.
And so like
are you really good at flipping heads?
Right. Like
no.
I mean, again, I recognize that like they're skilled and I obviously believe in them as a team. And I do think if they win, it will be like, so what, dude? You beat the Giants who like barely blah, blah, blah. Like they're in a lose-lose situation from a narrative standpoint, but they do have the best player in this game in Justin Jefferson. So I trust that. I could see them getting out to like a big lead. And if you can take Saquon out of it in that sense, like it would be a really hard game for the Giants to come back from. So I'll take the Vikings. I'll lay the points.
I think from a vibes perspective, working in the Giants' favor. The Vikings side
I kind of agree with you.
Good, and I just think there's something to Dable right now in terms of squeezing as much juice as he possibly can out of the orange that he's been given to work with, which is not a very juicy orange. So I just trust that, and I agree with Ed, and I agree with myself earlier. It's not that. So when it comes to the skill part of what Stats talked about, it's not like, yes, the Vikings should not be 11-0. They also shouldn't be 0-11. They should probably be something like, 8-3 or 7-4 in those one-score games. Mm-hmm. I just think I'm going to bet on the side of not Kirk Cousins, and I feel like I'm very comfortable doing that. And if the Vikings do lose this game, this is the most pathetic 13-win season of all time. It is. Like, you have this Giants team, the Vikings are more talented, I think, unquestionably. The Giants do not have a lot of talent, but they do have coaching going for them, and I do think there's something to their fighting spirit and everything. They're the New York football fighting Giants, and I'm going to take them outright to win the game.
A tiny bit of context I would offer. I no longer believe and I don't say this as like a bad kind of thing about, the Eagles won 14 games, but like I no longer put like stock in like you won 13 games, you're an elite team. Like this extra game muddies that a little bit. You know what I'm saying? So like your point about like they're the worst 13 win of all time. Well, they were a 13 win team in the 17 game era. You know what I mean? Like it's not the same thing as prior to 2 years ago, 13 wins meant you were an elite team. I think that inherently no longer means the same thing, but you're right. The Vikings
are the worst 12+ win team of all time.
Okay. I'm fine with that. That particular distinction. I mean, this might be like sipping the Giants Kool-Aid just a little bit. Remember when the Cowboys visited the Rams and Mike McCarthy had that objectively awesome line about how when he said we're nobody's underdog and like everybody fell in love with that. I think Dable's like playoff experience is overrated is like in that vein. It was kind of a cool line, it's like,
I don't think
it's not
that's
a cool
true though.
I don't think it's true, but it's not a cool thing if everyone says it, but like Dable's energy just kind of makes it work for me. The way McCarthy's saying that line did.
I think to wrap a bow on this from my perspective, the Giants,
you're into wrapping bows today,
handing a lot of presents. The Giants, I think what do I feel confident in this game? They're going to make it a game. That's what they usually do. They've been doing that for most of the season. They make it competitive. And I think that's where it comes down to the one score thing. It's going to be a game. So I feel good about that part. Do I know that they're going to win for sure? No, I can't lock it up, but I do think it's going to be a game. And if it's a one score game, then I'm going to just decide on the side of regression and say the Vikings are going to lose. So
not understanding the context or not knowing the context. If they win this game and if it's chalk in the way that they would normally win a game, I think should we keep Daniel Jones conversation goes from like kind of a cute thing to a real conversation. I'm not saying you do it, but like you actually have to think about it now as opposed to like casually dismissing it.
There's already a report out there. I don't know if you saw that from Boomer Esiason about how they're going to sign him to an extension. He's eligible. We'll see. I believe that. So the way we have it right now, you have. So before we talk about Monday night, you have the Eagles facing the winner of the Monday night matchup. Well, I currently have the Eagles facing the Giants.
Right. I agree. I obviously agree. So we didn't talk about this. This is not about the Eagles. So like I got a lot of this on Twitter. This is not about the Eagles. This is just about a general point. Because of the like situation I'm forecasting, this is why playoff games on Mondays are stupid. And I tweeted this.
Oh no, the Cowboys might have to play on short rest. No.
The Bucs might have to as well, like if they win the game. So like I tweeted this. I remember vividly when the NFL announced this would be the case. So the Rams played on the Monday in the Monday wildcard round last year. They won the Super Bowl. That's something everybody's pointed out. They did not face the 1 seed in the divisional round. So there is a world, the one I'm crafting at least, where the winner of Monday night's game is coming off of the shortest amount of rest possible, playing the team coming off of the longest amount of rest possible, having had to bye. It just so happens that it's the
Cowboys who always get a home
you're
game.
King of like, oh, the Cowboys never have to play a road Thursday game, blah, blah, blah. So like, don't come at me with that. Like, that's your whole bit. So like,
that's the point.
It's a true thing,
they're not getting
though.
screwed though. Like this is like the.
I don't think the Cowboys are getting
at all.
Like, I'm not saying the Cowboys are victims here or the Eagles are beneficiaries. Like, my point is like, it's stupid to put a playoff game on a Monday night like this. You're potentially compromising something. If the Giants win, it like removes a little bit of the sting because whoever wins this game would not be playing the Eagles, right? Or if the Seahawks won. But
I think any team the Eagles play are going to be playing on. Well, I mean, I think even if the Giants win, I think the Eagles would play on Saturday. So then they would also still be on a short week.
But they're coming off the bye. Like that's the bye is part of the point here. Like if the Cowboys were to be the team who wins, I'm picking the Cowboys to win. Spoiler alert here. You're talking about the team with the shortest amount of rest possible, coming off the road game. And like I'm well on record about this. Like I had a problem with the Bears playing in a road Monday night game and then traveling to face the Cowboys. Like it should not be this way. This isn't hard. Like you know what I mean. You have the like smartest people in some sectors of life designing this situation. Like you shouldn't set teams up to be at a objective disadvantage like this.
This is so rich coming from.
Person who again wrote every year annually about how the NFL needs to take away the Thanksgiving Day from the Cowboys because they never have to play a road Thursday game. So if you agree with that, you agree with the spirit of this point. That's
I'm not going to
can't talk out of both sides of your mouth.
I'm not. I'm saying though, like this is why it kind of evens out to me that the Cowboys would have to face this situation. It doesn't really make me feel bad for them.
What if it's the Bucs?
I mean, I feel a little bit worse for them for sure. But I'm not saying Monday Night Football has to happen in the wild card. I'm not standing for that. I'm just saying I cannot feel bad for the Cowboys at all when they have that advantage every year.
I have felt bad for every team in this boat. It just so happens to be the Cowboys.
I will feel the least bad for the Cowboys, not because like they're rival, whatever, just from the standpoint of if you never have to go. Literally never from Sunday to Thursday on the road. The Cowboys never have to do that.
This is a straw man thing.
They literally never have to go from Sunday to Thursday on the road.
We've all read the article every year at BG.
Not one time.
We all understand your point.
That shouldn't exist.
You should not put a team in this situation. You complained about the Eagles being on a short week on Christmas Eve when they had to play on a Saturday, visiting the Cowboys. Oh, it's their third road game in a row, and they have to play on a short week, and they have to go face a division rival.
I did not really make a big stink about that. I just said that was a factor working against them.
It was a stinky stink, and you made it. So let's pick this game, though. We already talked about it. Again, at the moment, Dallas 2.5-point favorites on the road. So, Vegas seems to think they're a better team than the Bucs.
Yeah, I made it my lock of the week already for the SB Nation NFL show, preemptively getting ahead of you. And, I mean, there's a reason why the Cowboys are favored on the road in this game. I do think, again, I think it's to be a one-score game, but the Bucs just don't have it. I also think there is a scenario where, unlike, obviously in the Super Bowl when Tom Brady, had the best comeback of all time, if there's a point where the Cowboys just pull ahead, I don't think Tom Brady's like, come on, guys, we have to fight. Because it's like he's done. He's 1 foot out the door, I feel like, in Tampa anyway. So if the Cowboys can kind of, make them quit early, I think the Bucs will quit. I don't think they fight back and get back into this one. Not that Tom Brady can't do that. He's capable of doing that in theory, but I just don't really think the momentum is there for that.
I'm picking the Cowboys, and I don't think there should be some sort of overreaction again. If people are like, well, if they lose this game, should you fire Mike McCarthy? You shouldn't put like that much stock. I recognize it's an incredibly important game. It's a playoff game, right? But one game does not undo everything that happened. You know what I mean? And so, but on the other hand, though, again, you spent all year telling us, right? Like, and I will give McCarthy, I gave him credit for like going on Rich Eisen's show and defending himself amid the Sean Payton and Dan Quinn rumors. Like you guys have talked a lot of talk, and to your credit, to this point, you have walked most of the walk. but this is it. Like, again, all of that's great. The destruction of the Vikings, the win against the Eagles on Christmas Eve, the win against the Bengals with Cooper Rush, all of those things were great, but like nobody will remember them. Like, you know what I mean? Like, you have an opportunity to give everybody something they'll remember. You have an opportunity to give somebody or give this team a playoff win against Tom Brady. And again, we can sit here and talk about how he's not the same version of himself, but like you get that, and you know, all of these reasons why people should take you serious, they become real to some people. But if you lose, you only perpetuate the idea that you're chokers, you can't get it done, same old, it's always going to be this way, blah, 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 blah. You have a chance, like, this is a dramatic way to put it, but you have a chance to write history. You do. Like, we say this all the time. History is written by the winner, or written by the winners. Go win. Go write some history.
Little Freudian slip by you. Jason Witten by the winners.
Ooh, it is on Monday night.
But I will say that if the Cowboys lose this game by more than one possession, that's tough. That's a really tough look.
I have said this before on different podcasts, like a long time ago when I first got into this. This is my house. This is my stadium. Do you know what the Twitter handle for the stadium that the Bucks play in is?
Raymond James.
But do you know what the Twitter handle is?
RJ Stadium.
It is literally RJ Stadium. So let's go.
And yet the team you like doesn't win there.
That would be a big time bummer. I will say to do one classic RJ thing. A lot of people compared, as the season was unfolding, this Cowboys team to the 2007 Giants in terms of being like a good team, but there was a better one in the division, like the way the Cowboys were, you know, the better team in that division that year. And everybody talked about, obviously, how if the Cowboys met the Eagles in the division around this year, it would be like the Giants meeting the Cowboys then. The Giants playoff route that year in 2007 began in Tampa against the Jeff Garcia led Buccaneers. I'll never forget that team. Hey, do it, man. Like, you might have to beat Tom Brady and the Eagles and the 49ers. But you know what? If you do it, it'll be awesome. If you don't, you have only yourself to blame. So then I have Cowboys, Eagles, Niners, Vikings in the divisional round. You have Cowboys, Niners, Giants, Eagles.
Yep.
You have the NFC Beast riding again. Holy crap, that'd be awesome.
There we go. 3 out of the last 4 teams in the NFC. By the way, Cowboys have not won in Tampa. Do you know when the last time was?
2011.
Yep.
LaRon Robinson.
2 games there, to be clear.
Yeah, they won in 2011 and 2008, I think. I remember that 11 game. It was maybe 09 then instead of 08. But the 11 game was I don't know if it was Thursday night, but it was Saturday night. It was in December, right? The 11 game.
Yeah. Yes.
Yeah. I remember the poinsettias on the NFL Network set. And the Bennetts at the time, Martellus was on the Cowboys and Michael was on the Bucks. And so like the parents were there. They had one of the half jerseys. You know what I mean? It's super cool. So I remember that vividly. But
when were you born? What year again?
89.
Okay, so since the Bucks
by the way
in RJ Stadium, the Cowboys are 3-3 there.
Ooh. I will say this because there's a chance that some Cowboys or Eagles fan hasn't heard it by now. The Cowboys have not won a road playoff game since the 92 NFC Championship game, which was in January of 93. But it was we've talked about this and set the record straight. That's the 92 Cowboys, not the 93 Cowboys.
Right.
So, and like they haven't had a lot of opportunities. Again, hello, this is who the Cowboys have been. But it would be
played a game in Green Bay one time.
Right. They had this actually. Can you look that up? Because I think this is one day after the anniversary of that, the Dez catch game. I think that was January 15th, 2015. I'll buy you some time.
Dez didn't catch it, but it's fine.
He did catch it, but because of the week 18 now, like all of the wild card games now happen like on what used to be divisional weekend.
Even if he caught that, there's how much time left in the game? And Rodgers carving up that defense.
I've long said this. Like even if the Cowboys score,
it wasn't. People act like it was like zeros on the clock. It was not zeros on the clock. It just was not.
I've had this argument with people for 8 years. Like, believe me, I understand it very well. But what day did that game happen on?
That game, what was that? 2014. That was 2014 playoffs. That was January 11th. Yeah, so you're a day off. Well, when when this episode drops, yes.
Oh,
yeah. Today, as you're listening to this, listener,
the title of this episode was supposed to be the Philadelphia Eagles won the NFC East, but now we have to change it to Des caught it. So
no, it's still remaining the Eagles thing. Come on, you have to give them their props. They won the division.
No, I've long given them their props. Like
I mean, in the title.
Oh, of course. Well, the title last year was the Dallas Cowboys won the NFC East. Right. Like I titled it and I sent the image over to you and Rachel. So like I already gave them their props.
Well, you said you were going to change it. You can't change it.
I do think we've reached a point. It took like a week after the Christmas Eve game for like Cowboys and Eagles fans to kind of like, you know, look away but shake hands. Like, okay, fine. You had a great season. Like each team talking to the other, like you had a great season. Whatever. Hate you. If we meet again, we'll get back to this like ridiculous screaming at one another. But for now, we go our separate ways. I do kind of feel like there is like peace in the galaxy, so to speak.
It would be pretty disappointing if it didn't happen. You know, if the Cowboys did, like, just it'd be very for the mixtape purposes alone. It'd be very just like anti-clim. And if the Giants lost too, it's just the Eagles.
If it set up a situation where the winner of this game was like heading to Philadelphia, it would be like the biggest like. And I was thinking about this when Ohio State was like, you know, flirting with beating Georgia. How I was thinking that like all these Ohio State fans were going to tweet like, "Well, Michigan, we could have met in the Natty, but you failed to get there." And that like that energy would be there, like, well, Cowboys, we were looking forward to it, you know what I mean? But you couldn't get here, whatever, blah blah blah. Last thing, and this we ended up going. I didn't think we were going to go that long today, but
it's the playoffs, baby. There's a lot to talk about.
But this is this is Tom Brady's third year with the Buccaneers, third year playing an NFC East team in the wild card round. The football team in 2020, the Eagles last year, and now the Cowboys. So Giants, watch out next year. So, wow. And I won't do this. I mean, let me be very clear. I might tweet this as like a fun bit, but I won't believe this in seriousness. There will be people who are like, the Eagles couldn't win in Tampa Bay in the wild card round last year, and the Cowboys did. So if they do.
All right.
Anything else you want to say before we get out of here? I asked you the weird phone rotational question. Do you have a weird question you want to ask?
No.
Are you sure?
I thought I had something to bring to the mixtape, but I don't think I do.
I watched Glass Onion on Netflix. I highly recommend.
Yeah, I heard you talking about that on at Monday Football Monday.
It was good.
It's the sequel to Knives Out. Yeah. I've not seen either of those movies.
They're both good.
I did catch up finally on Wakanda Forever recently.
Oh, was it good?
Yeah. Have you seen it?
No, but I also now this is the last thing I'm going to say. I was reminded the pattern I tweeted. It got a lot of interaction. Obviously, somebody who responded to it, and this was why I brought up Survivor. Mike Holloway from Survivor.
He tweeted it or retweeted.
He responded and was like LOL, or he said something like like there's a greater chance of Elvis releasing a new album than there is of like whatever. It was something like that.
So he's not.
Well, and no, he's a Cowboys fan, but like he was just like kind of like being self-deprecating. But then like I believe him that he didn't know this, but then a lot of people responded in like there's apparently some like Elvis like I don't know if it's like greatest hits or something album, but there is like a new album under the pretense of Elvis coming out this month. So all these people were like, this is actually happening. And he was like, I swear I didn't know this when I said this. It was really funny.
Do you know what Mike Holloway calls the Cowboys?
Don't. So
America's team.
Okay.
That's a reference that. Do you get that? Do you understand what I'm referencing? Because I feel like you don't.
I don't.
Well, is it really good if I explain it? But okay, I will. There's a tribe. He infamously named the Merge tribe on his season America.
So I don't remember the specifics. But
like that was like a very kind of cringy name. It's like really like we're going with this. So there you go.
Well, he won. Cowboys are gonna win.
BLG Survivor sucks one time. He sucks.
Stats sucks. All right. Everybody tweeted Stats.
Stats did listen to the mixtape.
At Stats on Fire, say you suck. Hashtag rotate.
Don't say that. That's too much. I do not co-sign that, to be clear. That's a little too harsh.
Hashtag rotate. BLG, give us 2 random words.
See ya.